Last weekend, I babysat my two nephews and my partner's niece and nephew, and all I could think to myself all weekend was, where the hell do they get this constant, limitless energy from? Because if you're anything like me, you would look at that in awe, because instead of that, you just find yourself constantly tired. Even if you're getting 8 hours sleep and doing what you think are all the right things, you find yourself lacking the energy that you want to do things. Over the last couple of years, I wanted to put an end to this constant feeling of tiredness. And through some extensive research and trying out things that I learned, I have discovered that there are a number of surprising reasons as to why you may be tired. And that's what I want to share with you today. And this will also include what we can do to not feel so tired. I will also just say that this video is not really going to include discussions around sleep, exercise, or diet, because I'm just going to presume that you are getting enough sleep, are exercising regularly, and do have a pretty healthy, balanced diet. If you don't, you really should, because those three pillars are the foundations of not feeling so tired. Some of what we discussed today may link into those things, but it's not going to be the focus of today's video. So let's jump in and let me take you to first thing in the morning. Your alarm goes off, you open your eyes, and you just think to yourself, nah, I ain't feeling this just yet, and hit the snooze button to get an extra 15 minutes of sleep. And whilst you might think that getting an extra bit of shut-eye might be good for your tiredness levels, hitting the snooze button is actually a big no-no. And this is because our body goes through multiple sleep cycles every night, from light sleep to deep sleep to REM sleep, and then back to light sleep, and this process repeats several times. Now, the problem with the snooze button is that in the morning, when you're getting close to your natural waking up time, your body starts preparing itself by releasing hormones and increasing its body temperature. But by the alarm going off, this process gets cut short. And that's often why you will wake up feeling groggy and tired. Now, most people have to wake up at a certain time, so cutting that first process short is kind of unavoidable. However, if you don't get up immediately and instead hit the snooze button, you are essentially telling your body to restart another sleep cycle and head back to deep sleep, which then means that you're going to have the same problem when your alarm goes off again, and you may wind up waking up even more tired, having cut a second sleep cycle short. So don't be a snoozer. Set your alarm for the time you want to wake up and then get the fuck up. No ifs or buts. And once you're out of bed, what is one thing that you won't have done for a while? Well, essentially everything, because hopefully you will have been sleeping for the last 7 to 9 hours, but hydrate is the answer I was looking for. And good hydration is so important, because even mild hydration can make you feel tired. And studies have also shown that good hydration can not only improve concentration and alertness, but cognitive abilities and mood. And so for me, I look to drink around 400 milliliters of water as pretty much the first thing I do in the morning after brushing my teeth and getting dressed. It's also important to stay hydrated throughout the day, and so I would recommend trying to drink a minimum of 3 liters of water each day, with more than that needed if you are exercising a lot or sweating heavily. And while we've just mentioned having water first thing, I'd put good money on the drink a lot of you actually turn to first thing, being good old coffee. But caffeine most definitely also does play a role in our levels of tiredness. And caffeine works by blocking the adenosine receptors in our brain. And adenosine is a chemical that makes you feel sleepy. And so by blocking its receptors, caffeine works by keeping us feeling alert and awake. And that's all good and well earlier in the day, but if you start consuming caffeine too late in the day, it can really start to mess with your sleep by delaying the onset of sleep, reducing total sleep time, and fragmenting sleep stages. It's also worth noting that the half-life of coffee is around 5 hours, which means that it can take around 12 hours to fully clear your system. And so I would recommend trying not to have caffeine past around midday to limit the effects that caffeine can have on your sleep. Now, when to stop caffeine for the day probably is something that a lot of you will have thought about. But another thing that I've started doing recently, on the recommendation of Andrew Huberman, is to delay my consumption of caffeine for 90 to 120 minutes after waking, as doing this allows your body more time to have a peak in cortisol after waking, and to fully clear adenosine that will have built up overnight. And personally, I have found that when I do ingest my caffeine 90 to 120 minutes after waking, I do actually have this heightened sense of alertness. And this method is also said to avoid the afternoon caffeine crash. And so by waiting the 90 to 120 minutes after waiting to first have coffee, and by not having caffeine past midday, I do really feel like I'm effectively utilizing caffeine as a tool to boost my energy levels, as well as my focus and productivity, without it having any negative impacts on my life or my levels of tiredness. But it's not just about what you put in your body, it's also about what you expose your body to, like a good supply of morning sunlight. As morning sunlight plays a crucial role in regulating our circadian rhythm, which is like our internal body clock that dictates our sleep-wake cycle. And so exposure to natural sunlight in the morning signals to the brain that it's time to be awake by enhancing the release of the hormones cortisol and epinephrine, and by suppressing melatonin, which is the hormone that promotes sleep. This early light exposure also boosts serotonin production, which enhances mood and energy throughout the day. And so by aligning our circadian rhythm to our natural light-dark cycle, morning sunlight helps us feel more awake throughout the day, and it also promotes better quality sleep at night, thereby reducing feelings of tiredness and enhancing overall energy levels. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, please do give it a like, and it'd be really great if you subscribe to the channel. Okay, by this point you have bounced out of bed without hitting the snooze button, have hydrated, have waited a little bit to have your first cup of coffee, and have even got some morning sunlight. And you sit down at your desk, open your computer, and ping, 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 emails coming in, calls to make, people to respond to, and all of a sudden, your stress levels have massively risen. But stress is another thing that can massively impact our levels of tiredness. For one, it can impact our sleep patterns once again. It can also cause muscle tension and mental exhaustion, as well as weakening our immune system and leading to chronic inflammation. Stress can also have negative impacts on our nutrition and digestion, often leading to bad eating habits and digestive issues. And so stress really is a bit of a killer on our bodies and our levels of tiredness too. But I'm not going to sit here and just say that this is an easy one to fix and to completely get rid of. But I will just remind people here about the importance of exercise, as in my opinion, exercise really is the number one thing that you can do to combat stress. Mindfulness and meditation is recommendation number 2, as I do think that can help and is something that people should consider. And in particular here, I think just trying to gain some perspective on situations is something that can really help if you do find yourself getting super stressed, as the chances are whatever you are going through is probably not that big a deal and doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And so I think just reminding yourself of that and trying to gain that level of perspective is something that you can do if you find yourself getting stressed. Okay, moving on, and hopefully you have managed to compose yourself, yet you still have an endless list of things to do throughout the day, most of which may involve sitting at a desk or having very little movement. But counterintuitively to what you might think, a lack of movement can really also sap your energy levels. And before you start criticizing me for saying that I wasn't going to talk about exercise, and here I am talking about exercise, well, by movement here, I do not mean exercise. I don't mean going for a run or lifting weights or anything like that. I simply mean making sure that you are moving your body enough throughout the day. And I agree, it seems weird to think that not moving your body and not using energy would actually make you feel less energized, but that really is what I find, because for whatever reason, not expending enough energy does seem to result in not having enough energy. And I find this even on days when I might go for a run in the morning and have a really active morning, but if I then just sit at my desk for the rest of the day, I can just feel myself bit by bit getting more sluggish and my energy being taken away from me throughout the day. So make sure that you do get up every hour, try to go for a couple of 10 to 20 minutes walks each day, and do make sure that you are stretching and just moving your body enough throughout the day. You'll feel a lot better for it and a lot more energized. All right, so you've made it through the day, and what have you got on your mind? Alcohol. And think that a nice nightcap is exactly what you need to help you relax. However, the truth is that alcohol, particularly later in the day, can once again disrupt your sleep patterns, impair your breathing throughout the night, and it can make it more likely that you will wake up in the night when the effects have worn off. And, of course, depending on how much you have drunk, there's also the likely effects on your energy levels the following day. Now, I'm never going to tell anyone to stop drinking alcohol, but I would just say try to be mindful of your alcohol consumption and try to avoid it as best as possible the closer you get to bedtime. Because the truth is that really alcohol at best can only have a neutral impact on your tiredness levels, and in reality it's almost certainly actually going to have a negative impact on your tiredness levels. Okay, we've now made it to late in the evening, but instead of dimming the lights and starting to wind down before bed, you find yourself on the biggest attention sap of all, your phone. And this is another thing that will be doing no favors for our energy levels, because screen time before bed mimics the effects of bright lights. And so instead of telling our brain that it's nighttime and to start winding down, it tells our brain that it's still daytime, which in turn then signals the release of cortisol and epinephrine, which keeps us awake, and it reduces or decreases the buildup of melatonin, which helps us feel sleepy. And feeling awake in the evenings is exactly what we want to be trying to avoid. There's also been studies to suggest that viewing bright light between 11 PM and 4 AM can suppress dopamine, which typically makes us feel good and is an antidepressant. And it can also activate the habenula, which is the disappointment nucleus in the brain. And so over the next few days, this results in our mood being low and feeling more disappointed than usual. So, stop scrolling TikTok and put the phone away before bed. And this also applies to trying to avoid laptop screens and TV monitors too. Alright, final couple of points, and you are now lying in bed. And after effectively doing all the things that I've said to do throughout the day or not do, you would think that you would be falling asleep like a baby. However, for whatever reason, your mind is racing and you just can't seem to get to sleep. Well, if that's the case and you've been lying there for 30 minutes or more, it's probably going to be better for you to actually get up and try to do some relaxing exercise before you feel properly sleepy. Because there's nothing worse than just lying in bed feeling all anxious about how early you have to wake up the following day. And if you get to sleep but then wake up in the middle of the night, make sure to not check the time. Because checking the time could actually make you feel anxious and it could result in a cortisol spike and then make it way harder to get back to sleep. Okay, there you have it, my full list of things to try to implement throughout the day. And truly, I do find that when I am implementing these things effectively, I do feel way less tired and have much better energy levels. So give some or all of them a go and let me know how you get on in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do check out my previous upload here. Please do like the video, and it would be really great if you also subscribe to the channel. Thanks again, and I will see you in my next video.